There are moments in life when we feel that something is missing. Not more money, not more success, not more noise, but meaning, a deeper sense of who we are, why we're here, and what really matters. Over 2,000 years ago, on a quiet hillside, Jesus spoke words that would echo through history, not with force, not with commands, but with a message so radical, so gentle, and so deeply transformative that people are still trying to understand it today. This teaching is known as the Sermon on the Mount. And it isn't just a sermon, it's an invitation to see life differently, to see others differently, and to see ourselves differently. Today, we'll explore what the Sermon on the Mount really means, not as a set of religious rules, but as a path toward inner transformation. So take a breath, slow down, and let these words meet you where you are. The Sermon on the Mount appears in the Gospel of Matthew, chapters 5 through 7. Jesus has just begun his public ministry. People are gathering around him. The poor, the sick, the overlooked, the spiritually hungry. This was a time of deep suffering. Many lived under Roman occupation. Poverty was widespread. Religious life had become rigid and legalistic. People felt trapped, politically, economically, spiritually. And into this world, Jesus does something unexpected. He doesn't begin with laws, he doesn't threaten, he doesn't shame. He sits and he speaks, not to the powerful, not to the elite, but to ordinary people. And what he says turns everything upside down. Jesus begins with what are called the Beatitudes. They start like this: Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the merciful. This is already strange. In most systems, blessing is associated with success, strength, beauty, wealth, and power. But Jesus says, Blessed are the broken. Blessed are the gentle. Blessed are those who hunger for righteousness. Blessed are the peacemakers. This isn't poetry for its own sake. It's a redefinition of reality. Jesus is saying, you are not blessed because you are impressive. You are blessed because you are open. Poor in spirit doesn't mean worthless. It means receptive. It means aware that you don't have all the answers. To mourn doesn't mean to be weak. It means to feel deeply, to love deeply, to care. The meek are not powerless, or they are gentle by choice. Jesus is not glorifying suffering. He is revealing that the kingdom of God is not built on ego, status, or domination. It is built on humility, compassion, and inner openness. This is the foundation of the entire sermon. Jesus then says something quietly revolutionary. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. Salt preserves, light reveals. In other words, your presence matters. Not because of what you achieve, but because of who you are becoming. Jesus is pointing inward. He is teaching that transformation does not begin with institutions. It begins in the heart. When your inner world changes, your outer world changes. Then Jesus does something that shocks his listeners. He takes familiar moral rules and pushes them deeper. You have heard it said, do not murder. But I tell you, anyone who is angry in their heart has already crossed a line. You have heard it said, do not commit adultery. But I tell you, anyone who looks with lust has already begun the process. This isn't about making people feel guilty. It's about awareness. Jesus is saying, your actions don't come from nowhere. They rise from your inner world, your thoughts, your fears, your wounds, your desires. True transformation doesn't start with behavior. It starts with consciousness. Jesus then talks about prayer, but he doesn't praise public performance. He says, go into your room, close the door, be still. This is not about impressing God. It's about encountering God, not externally, but internally. The prayer Jesus gives, often called the Lord's Prayer, is not a formula. It's a map a movement from ego to surrender to forgiveness to trust. Then Jesus speaks about worry, and these words feel painfully modern. Do not worry about tomorrow. Look at the birds of the air. Consider the lilies of the field. He is not dismissing real struggles. He is pointing out how much of our suffering is created in the mind. We replay the past. We fear the future. We live everywhere except here. Jesus is inviting people back into the present, back into trust, back into being. Another powerful section is about judgment. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. This isn't about never having opinions. It's about projection. We often condemn in others what we cannot face in ourselves. Judgment creates separation. Jesus is offering something else: understanding, compassion, humility. Then comes one of the most famous teachings: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This is not a moral slogan, it's a spiritual practice. It means before you speak, before you act, before you react, pause and ask, what would love do here? Now we come to one of the hardest parts. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. This feels impossible. And it is, if we interpret it emotionally. Jesus is not saying, feel affection for people who hurt you. He is saying, do not let hatred rule your heart. When you hate, you are still bound. Forgiveness is not approval, it is freedom. Jesus speaks of a narrow path, not because it's exclusive, but because it requires awareness. It is easier to follow the crowd. It is harder to be conscious. The Sermon on the Mount is not about being good. It's about becoming real. It is not a rule book. It is a mirror. It reveals how much of our suffering comes from ego, fear, and illusion. And it invites us into a deeper life, not louder, not flashier, but truer. So what do we do with all of this? Not everything here is easy. In fact, most of it isn't. But Jesus never said this path would be easy. He said it would be life-giving. Maybe the Sermon on the Mount isn't something to master. Maybe it's something to sit with, one line at a time, one breath at a time. So I invite you now, not to change everything, but to choose one small thing, one teaching, one phrase, and let it gently work on you. Because transformation doesn't happen through force. It happens through awareness, through presence, through love.